clear though?
Yeah, your voice is clear. There's a bit of background noise, but that's okay.
Okay, all right. It's right now in a cafe, but yeah, okay. So
I kind of figured. Last week I was in the coffee shop, and this week you're in the coffee shop.
That's right. All right. So yeah, thanks, Mike. So maybe we can start by sharing a bit of the wins this past weekend. Okay, any learning and things like that. Okay, yeah. So would you like to go first?
Yes. Okay. 10x book. I'm really enjoying reading that, and it's interesting because it's a more consolidated version of what he's been talking about for the last year, and that's interesting because it kind of and there's links to gap and gain, and that I found really interesting, the way that he ties them together. More so than you would necessarily, having read the gap and the gain. It's kind of like, yeah, get that right, yeah, gap gain. But now in context to 10x, it's interesting how the two kind of link, as it were. So I suppose that's a win and a learning. And I think to turn that into an action, then I was just contemplating, how do I make that an incorporated part of my life? Because I think, well, maybe not everybody, but I would imagine everybody gaps a certain degree, because I think there's a lot of our culture and a lot of our upbringing which are very similar, and we do that. So I'm assuming that there's a lot of that going on with everybody. In which case, how do you make it so that your life is more gain than gap, and implement that? And that's I was wondering about. But also, and this is something that we haven't touched on in Coach yet for my group, I think probably you've touched on it in your group, and that's unique abilities. And what does that mean? And again, he's bringing in that context. So that for me was really interesting. And so it's not necessarily a win or singular win per se, but I think a generic reflection and learning about those two core elements as component parts of 10x. And if we're in the process of 10xing JCF, how does that apply to us? Immunology, income sec, relatively speaking, how does that apply to us? What is it that we have to do for us to see those successes? But yeah, that's kind of where I was extrapolating the learning, really. So, there you go. That's me.
Thanks. I think that's actually quite a good reflection. I think I think somehow gap and again thinking and 10x goes hand in hand, because there's a sense of, if you are always looking at the gap, then I think that will probably lower down your confidence, your willingness to try to kind of make the bold move, right? But we understand that the 10x process is really a lot about trimming down the 80%. And that a lot of times is giving up things, giving up the familiar, giving up the stable, giving up the, it's kind of, you're taking risk, right? You could fail, you could embarrass yourself, right? But if you have a fundamentally kind of a gap perspective, which I find, which also I think is why I think entrepreneurs, in fact, are a different breed of people. I mean, in ancient times, they're probably the explorers, the wanderers, going off the edge of the valley, right? And then might be eaten alive, right? And may not come back. But at the same time, that's how also new territories are being sort of extended, being explored, right? So obviously, right now we're safer, but I think similar things. So I do feel that, gap and gain, if you have a game mindset, then you will be more daring, more bold, and more willing to trim down your AD, right? To get rid of your past, current, or former selves, than clinging to them. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's that's a great thing for sharing. Okay, and that's also a good question. I think we can ask actually in today's discussion of how to actually apply the ideas, the theory, right, the concepts to what we're currently doing. Okay, all right. So I'll share about my wins as well. I am doing regular quote unquote mindset upgrade in terms of transforming myself more to think like a billionaire. I do so by going through a couple of billionaire mindset books, kind of alternating them and, kind of listen to them on Sunday morning. So just yesterday, I was listening to Billionaire Mindset. That's actually, by the way, a book I highly recommend you to also, if you haven't, I think it's by Daniel. He's a South African actually investor. Okay. It's just called the Billionaire Mindset. And he basically, the takeaway this time has been, he talks about billionaires think, well, very differently from even, let's say, millionaires, in the sense of they, what he calls operate above or below the line. Okay, so below the line, it's all about budget control. It's all about how to achieve your, like your goals or, objectives, but and with, limited amount of resource that you're being allocated. However, when you're operating above the line, that means you can always raise more capital, more money, more resource to address whatever issues you're facing. And typically, most issues can be addressed by throwing more money at it. Okay, so this is actually I think how like billionaires are thinking. And one of the things that kind of caught my attention this time is the idea of mind share. Okay, which is below the line thinking is more about how to build a product, how to make things happen, how to, let's say, make something, provide a service. But above the line thinking, the goal is not just to build up stuff, it's to actually capture people's mind share. Okay, so think Coca-Cola, McDonald's, okay, being the category leaders of their respective categories. So what they're actually trying to do is to able to capture mind share when people think of a certain category and they can immediately associate with the name, the brand, the product. Okay, sorry, I think I do have some background noise here. Is it okay for you?
Sorry, I can
okay.
fine.
All right, because I'm close to the microphone. Yeah, but this is yeah. So the idea that click is that, and he also talks about how capital has been raised in a broken way. Basically, banks and VC, right? Banks right now, because after 2008, all the banks require collaterals. Okay, it doesn't matter what business concept you have, as long as you have collateral, banks are willing to give you money. Okay, but you can only scale as how much assets you're willing to become collateral. And then VCs, there's different issues with VC. So he actually advocates entrepreneurs supporting each other, okay, and cross-holding each other's companies, in terms of investments. Okay, so and forming like coalitions, alliances. So that's kind of an interesting concept, which I think will actually fit very well with wealth and what we're doing. Okay, because wealth is essentially an fundraising platform and for entrepreneurs, among entrepreneurs, in fact. Okay, so what I find was Daniel's idea, although we haven't met, we haven't talked, but what he discussed actually I think can be implemented rather, nicely with what wealth is intending to do. So I guess that's the takeaway. And also, I think we should engage Daniel. that's that's another thing. like he's by the way, he married the former Miss South Africa, also Miss World. Okay, he actually helped his wife, to become Miss World by using all the entrepreneur, tricks, which the other, ladies did not have. So he kind of applied the Link Star methodology in terms of how to make his, by the time that was girlfriend, right, into becoming Miss World. So you can read about that story in his book. All right, so that's my wins this weekend.
Wow. Okay.
Okay.
That's interesting. That's interesting. I think, like just an observation, Coca-Cola and McDonald's both had something unique in that Coca-Cola has a recipe that nobody knows. Even those directors that hold the recipe don't hold the whole recipe. They only hold part of the recipe, so that no one person can be held to ransom. And then McDonald's has what they call the Bible. And that's a set of operating instructions that you have to follow regardless of where you are and what franchise you own. And it's only by following that will you have success. Once they've gotten that, then they've then that kind of mind share or whatever is easy, because you've obviously got the kind of for want of the term that you're using, below the line operations working. But it's almost like I would suggest then that there's a chicken and egg argument. Which comes first? Is it the operational kind of routine that works is the basis or the platform for the mind share to take place? Because if you look at, I mean, back in the UK in the early 2000s, late 90s, there was a company called, oh, bloody hell, I've forgotten its name. Oh, gosh. I remember the concept.
It's a UK company. Anyway, just describe the concept. I think that's fine.
Yeah. So they basically were an internet startup, and you could lastminute.com, that's it. So at the last minute, you would think, I want to go to Japan, journey to Japan, destination Japan, click the button, and it gives you hotels, flights, so on and so forth. The idea was great, and they got loads of money. They weren't profitable for years, because they took massive mind share, and people threw money at them, and they were a classic example of what's going on at the moment. Actually, within crypto, people throwing money at ideas, but they've got no product. They've got no operational success. The idea that entrepreneurs co-fund each other or work together, I think, is really cool. I think there's a classic statement that says, "Together we stand, divided we fall," and I think that's always resonated with me. From a Baha'i principle, there's a guiding principle, which is unity and diversity. So the idea that there's a garden with lots of flowers in it, there's lots of different flowers, roses, tulips, violets, chrysanthemums, so on and so forth. And they're all got different fragrances, they've all got different colors, they've all got different times of year that they come out. But that diversity gives you a unified garden of one of a beautiful garden. Right? So by having differences, by celebrating those differences, actually things become stronger. So I think, that really resonates with me as a concept, and which is why I think wealth is a good idea. But I think that comes down to wealth and JCF being, if you want to use the context of being below the line, I think it's important that below the line actually is successful before you can really take advantage of mind share.
That's very true. That's also what Daniel said. I mean, like below the line is like the strong foundation, It's kind of like how you're growing things. It's just that sort of he's explaining kind of from the start, if you can start to think, sort of like above the line thinking, and use that as your starting or ending point. Begin with the end in mind. Then you will actually have a business that will operate and scale very differently from some local or family owned shops.
No, true.
I think that's right. I think that's
Yeah.
what kind of like he talks about this, the giant oak seed embodies all the design, even when it's just a small seed or a small tree, but it does have all the design embodied in the seed, even when it's just planted, right? But given enough time, water, nurture, it's going to grow into a mighty oak. Yeah, that's kind of the analogy he gave.
No, I get that. I get that very much. And indeed, if you look at the example of both for both of us, if you think that and what we're learning within AMP and Coach, right? So with a 25-year vision, how did that change how I looked at things? And I can, I now know with that massive, that massive mindshare idea of bringing about a more equal distribution of wealth has got, just trying to achieve 1% of that a quarter. I don't care if it takes me 25 years, because if I got that, then I'd be happy, right? But I think the thing is, it means then that every decision that I make now is like, well, is it getting me there? Are we progressing towards that? Yes or no? It's a very, very clinical and simple equation. If you look at IncomeSec has just been a company that I've been able to do. There was no great grand design other than providing me with some form of stable income, which it has done. But there isn't a grand design. It's operational, but it's not going to change the world in its current format. And I would imagine then, I'm making an assumption here that you possibly think the same way about immunology. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe that's a wrong assumption.
No, immunology was going to conquer, dominate. No, just kidding. But it was designed to build the metaverse infrastructure. Yeah,
right. Okay.
At least that was the intent. Yeah, good.
Well, okay, but that's a good question then, as to why where it is on that journey, right? And whether or not that journey is still the right journey for it.
Okay.
Because I certainly don't think IncomeSec is on had a journey as defined as that, nor and then now that I know that, well, what is its journey? What is its purpose? Where does that fit in with the 25-year goal? And I think that's interesting. So yeah, okay. I guess I was just trying to draw some parallels which are tying into what you were saying. Yeah, that's it really.
Great, thanks. I think that's a great warm up of the things about to discuss. So, any topics on your mind for today? What's the primary thing you like to discuss today?
Yeah, I just I guess it's trying to evaluate where we are with everything. With the idea of it being talking about gains, right, not gaps. So we did the ICO for wealth. One could argue that there's a gap there to be talked about, but what is the gain?
Right.
And how is that gain going to be improved upon? What, if we've done 1%, right? Great. What's our 1% for next quarter or next month, even if we wanted to, right? If you argue like that, if we do 1% every month, then we'll get there a lot quicker than 1% every quarter, right? But so there's that. So what gains, and that's what I was thinking about over the weekend, is how to gain up what we've done, both for JCF and for wealth. And I think there's some clear wins. I think pragmatically, I'd like to know where the money's gone. So I've made 2 payments of 2,000, so that's 4,000. You're expecting a third one, right? I'd like to know where that money is, because IncomeSec as a company has got no return on investment tangibly from that investment. So I need to see where that is and what's going on with that. That's a bit of a pragmatic thing. But there you go.
All right. Okay. All right. Thanks. So that's the topic. So for on my side, basically, the first topic is actually okay. Well, I think quick updates. This is just updates. Over the weekend, I did try to get Nick and Amit to, actually Amit and I, we came online, but we haven't found Nick yet. Okay, so I'm assuming
Okay.
it's been a bit hectic for him
Yeah.
over the
Yeah.
weekend. Yeah. So, but well, the progress when there is Amit now has been briefed twice actually in terms of what's expected of him, and he also
Yeah.
agrees, to go into it. Okay. So for me, what I like to discuss, I think, well, first is I think an important but not urgent thing is, the three hacks, review the three hacks. That kind of coincide with your evaluation thing. But specifically, what does that mean for us moving this year, 2023? Okay.
Yeah.
So the three hacks, looking from the three hacks perspective, and what's 2023. And then the second thing is I actually went to a high school reunion, okay, this yesterday. And one of my high school classmates right now, he owns a 100+ person company that's doing like second rental, which is they take houses, sort of renovate it and rent it out. Okay, so they kind of, I don't know, how do you call that business in English? It's it's
Just general buy to let. That's what I do all day long, sort of in
okay,
the
buy
property bit.
yeah, yeah. I
You
mean,
buy a
like
house, you refurb it, and then you rent it out to somebody.
exactly, but I mean, like they're a specialized company of 100 person right now,
Hmm.
right? And they're actually thinking like going IPO next year. Okay, so
Wow.
they're in
Okay.
the process of doing that. And so I share with him the wealth, I mean, the JCF concept, and he provided, I think, a good feedback, which is if we want to really address the social impact, which is kind of an uncertain landscape, with the world being uncertain, you kind of have to have a stable, like ROI or stable profit generation machine to support that. Okay. And
Yeah.
right now
Yeah.
he feels that the crypto index fund we're talking about isn't stable enough to provide that kind of growth and guarantee for basic income. He did mention things like other things, like if you can really do a proper rental business, with taking rent payments and tokenize that,
Hmm.
that might be a better idea. Okay, so from his
Hmm.
perspective, you have to have a stable. So I think that's something we
Hmm.
can maybe also discuss. Okay,
Hmm. Hmm.
like
Hmm.
all right. So I think yours first. Um, so the wins, JCF wealth, and I would like to add also the investment strategy, how the current teamwork has been working. Okay,
You mean
so
with Nick?
with Nick, with also with Joy. Okay, so basically the wins there. Yeah, so maybe you can share a bit and what's your
I think
perspective
yeah.
and yeah.
Yeah. No, I definitely think we've got something there. I mean, obviously, I don't really see anything of Joy of what she's done or anything like that, so I haven't had any feedback, so I don't know. Nick certainly has always been quite forthcoming with his suggestions, and the fact that he's offered, to basically give us his kind of his his algorithms and his data to move things forward is good. It was great. Implementing that, we just need his help to do that. Then I thought which again is good. So yeah, definitely. I think the fact that we did the ICO when we said we would do it is a positive thing. I think there's much learning to be done there. I think Joy's input at that stage was really valuable because we could learn an awful lot from that. And I also think it's changed my opinion of Hakeem as well, because he gave us some suggestions, and he said, like, look, give us this much, and I'll take this much, and then we'll go forward from there. But certainly, we've learned something from the doing of it all. But I think to actually see some solid returns from that, you know, we need to change the methodology. But yeah, I think it's positive what we've done so far. There's no doubt.
What do you mean by Joy's feedback? Just to clarify on that.
So when we were talking about
did you find valuable?
Yeah. So just when she was telling us, when we were talking about the ICO, she was saying, well, you know, what about the case studies, recommendations, or the referrals? What about, and yeah, that was all kind of interesting, and you know, her perception of, well, who's the customer, kind of standard marketing stuff was interesting to hear all of that. I get the impression her home life and her work life is probably quite time consuming. Even with Nick, his work life and home life is time consuming, but he's managing to kind of squeeze a call in, you know, 1 hour in a week or so, and he's more responsive on the channels. So I think look, whilst we're building the team, I think we also have to be quite open-minded about what is being given back by the team members. What contributions are they making? Because if we're results orientated, then we need people who are going to give us results. And, you know, we're going to reward them. Now, we can't reward them with money today, but we can reward them with money tomorrow in the form of tokens or currency, you know.
And in fact, it might be rewardable even now, you know, if there are some designs. Token is actually something that can be rewarded, you know, if it's token that we're issuing.
Okay, well, I mean, the economics of that or the tokenomics of that, then I just need to understand, because for me, and what I don't see from a JCF perspective is, you know, its value, and in terms of, you know, a Bitcoin is worth $16,000 or whatever it is, right? With a JCF main token, what's it worth? Likewise with wealth, what's it worth? And I think we don't have a value there. I do want to make a point about the feedback from your old classmate as well, because I think that's quite an interesting one. But we'll come back to that.
All right. Okay. Good. So that let me also maybe share what I see as the wins here. Okay, looking back, sort of kind of doing a review. I'll try to, I guess, say something you haven't said. Okay. I do feel that the time when you know, we were just finding the team members and kind of get them onboarded simply because of the, I guess, the value, the vision, the goals that we are, you know, looking at. Okay. And to get people on board, I think that was a successful experience. Okay. Particularly given, you know, the time, sort of the time constraint. And frankly, I do still feel that the current, you know, the people, they want to contribute. Okay. It's just that they, right. It's simply a capacity issue, you know, and, you know, kind of being burdened by the, but you know what? I think there's an, this is very interesting in the sense that, in some sense, that's exactly the problem that JCF has set up to solve. Okay. Let me elaborate a bit more.
No, I get it.
Okay. You know, people, wealth level, income level correlates to what they can produce in the marketplace. Okay. And how much they can actually capture that. What happens is right now there's been a widening gap. And this widening gap, due to no small part to technological advancement, but also knowledge gap. Okay, you know, the more I'm into entrepreneur mindset, you know, like billionaire thinking, the more I realize that, you know, like these people operate very differently. Okay, like wealthy people have wealthy mindsets and wealthy thinking and abundance thinking, and business like thinking. Like I'm personally helping my own family, my parents, to handle some house stuff, as and I could see that given their approach of handling things, dealing with tenants, selling houses, it's going to take a lot of time. And when I went there, it was like shoot, 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 done, right? you know, because I have
Mm.
some, a bit more, experience and also thinking in terms of how to make things effective. Now, that is something you have to spend time to learn. But the tragedy is a lot of people, especially I think in the working poor, is that they are time poor also, okay, in the sense that maybe occupied by low productivity jobs, and then
Mhm.
or wasting times, things like that. So
Mhm.
I do feel that, I mean, Dan Sullivan is right. He when he talks about you cannot have money freedom, financial freedom before you actually have time freedom. I now see that as ever more true. And what getting some money will help you is you can actually buy yourself some time. I mean, this is what I'm experiencing very true now. I can sense that. And the money spent is to buy the time, but you have to use it wisely. Okay, not
Mhm.
wasting that. So, okay, so I guess what I'm trying to say is, um, I think it's actually I see this as a positive experience in terms of how do we actually get over from being a really resource stripped startup. Okay. And obviously you have successful experience of building income stack already, right? So in that sense, you are ahead in that space. And right now, I think how we can actually use and leverage I guess, the ideas, the thinking, in terms of elevating even our own team's thinking and working. I think that's also important. Okay, so that's I guess one thing I'd observe. And the other thing, okay, I think in terms of the strategy, implementing the experience of implementing the um, okay, mix strategy, but the whole process. I also find myself, really trying to practice who not how a lot more, and try to, just
Mhm.
not just myself doing the work, but again, finding the best people who might be the most suitable candidate to do the work, and just try to, basically leveraging who not how, the concept. So I think there's a lot more practice in that space as well. So I guess going forward, I would call those some, I guess, successful experience in terms of launching the thing. Um, so if if I were to say what's the best 20% we've done in the last quarter, I would say is leveraging the idea of using who not how, and also finding people to join with mission and value alignment, and try to make things still happen despite being really constrained the resource or time zone, that kind of thing.
Mm.
So if there's something I'd like to 10x or to multiply in this quarter, that would be basically sharpening up the value, the mission even stronger. Okay, basically crafting the message even stronger, and then attract, find, I guess, the right who's, the who's that can join. Okay, basically what I'm thinking about is, if and basically find a model that can actually work across geography, time zone, and kind of like in a decentralized organization fashion, because like traditional organization, it's very, the time is being purchased, right? You are being paid as employee, so your time is fully devoted. But right now, I guess in our case, what happens is we have to utilize fractional time to the best advantage of making something actually happen. Okay, so that's yeah. So I guess those have been my thinking and takeaway. And okay. So, all right. So, yeah, okay. So, regarding your question about how the money currently is being spent, okay. So for the first month,
actually,
yeah,
just
okay,
on that though,
yeah,
there's
okay. Any feedback?
two important,
Okay.
two important things there. So one is you said the success of income sec. I mean, I greatly appreciate the compliment. I wouldn't, you know, it's success is a measure, right? And it's subjective, I suppose. But I think what has it been successful at doing? It's taking product and selling those products. But those and to some degree now creating a service around that. But it starts off with a below the line product that can deliver a defined ABC. And because of that, it's just about scaling up the delivery of said product. So bringing that back to JCF, I think that's why it's so important that if Nick's idea of or statement that 10% per month is what we can publish, 20 to 30% is what we can achieve, it's so vital that that gets done now, because every day that we're not implementing that strategy, we're not getting the advantage of that.
We're losing money. We're losing money, exactly. Essentially.
Yeah, exactly. And every day, and so what does that mean though? What is that growth going to do? Well, that's going to provide us with 20% or whatever to invest back into the organization, which will pay for the time correlation that you just mentioned, even though we want to, you know, and this idea of fractional kind of working, I think is really good, because if we look at the examples that we've got so far outside of ourselves, we've got Joy, who's a copywriter, and we've said, well, look, you can be the CMO if you want the job. It's there, we're offering it. And she said, yes, please. And then we've got Anastasia, who sat there and said, oh, well, look, if you look at your website, these are the things that you need to do. And here's my solutions. And this is how much it's going to cost, right? So they're not necessarily competing with each other. They're complementary in some respects, but there's going to be, and it's almost like, let's say we had, how I've interpreted your understanding of fractional, right, is that if you and I have oversight over 5 different marketeers, all of whom are doing various different elements of marketing, we'll almost be running the role of being the chief marketing officer, until such time as one of those people stand up and take on the time responsibility to deliver on those areas, right? And I think that's a reasonable thing to ask, because until somebody sees that they can actually get a return on that investment, they kind of, that return might be just the salary, or that might be a more entrepreneurial return, right? So I think there's some juggling that you and I have to do, and I think that I think there's a combination there of, to take IncomeSec example, it's just finding the product, selling the product, and just pushing the product, right? That's one thing. Then there's the kind of visionary element as well, of like creating the kind of the message and the ideas behind it that take it forward, and rethinking, right? So look, Junior, clearly you're very good at figuring things out and finding ideas. That's like one of your gifts, right? So, and I think for the purpose of JCF and wealth, so for Main and Wealth, where I think we need that is honing down and refining the goal. So the goal of JCF Main is for it to be incredibly profitable, to prove its to give it a track record so we can prove its value, and therefore we can then, that just bolsters up the message. So then we'll have loads of people who invest in it going, yeah, this is brilliant. I'm making so much money, and I'm happily giving a bit to also finishing the process from cradle to grave. And I don't think these are anything different than what I said to you back in, I don't know, June, July, or whenever it was, right? When we were talking about it at Collision. So I think that's kind of where we need to focus.
Are you saying that maybe it's time to revisit that? Since right now wealth is more or less quote unquote done in the sense of having the skeleton, right? The basic 80%. Actually, the funding mechanism, that is something I'm going to be, I suppose should verify today. Okay, so it's today or tomorrow, to verify if funding is done. If funding is verified, okay, meaning USDT in, you get your wealth token. The system is there, you can create account, you can do KYC, you can fund, you can get token. It's functional. That's already, it's there. Okay. So by the way, that's where your first month, 2/3 of that, what it's been paid to buy. Okay. So that's the result. Okay. And what happens is, I think the next thing, probably we want to go back, right, to JCF, the original idea, like you said, make that, profitable. And also the social, the social donation aspect, also make that, visible. I think it's people aren't seeing that yet, right? So I think that's kind of where we want to probably do it. And once those are in place, you're right. I mean, one thing we might expect is traction of the JCF main fund. And that traction will become the advertisement, quote unquote advertisements, right? Or the sales letter for JCF Wealth, meaning that there is an existing working mechanism. Yeah, so I get that. And also that could align well with what I've been talking about, the Planet Summit, okay, which, kind of still trying to enlist Peter to agree. But regardless of the outcome, okay, I guess the idea is we will find a stage, we will find some kind of theater for wealth to become more publicized, right? And if you already have, I guess, the JCF story that's concrete, then wealth essentially can build on top of that. I think that's what you're talking about, right?
Yeah. And indeed, one of I've sat there and said I wanted Space Mercenaries to be launched this quarter, so Q1 23, and it's within our interest that Space Mercenaries does that within wealth, okay, because that's beneficial. Having said that, though, because Dan's the other party in that one, it could be that we have to take it elsewhere if he gets impatient and he sees that there's other opportunity, right? And indeed, that's a good test of the structure of wealth and the benefits of wealth. Is that like, look, if there's different funding kind of opportunities out there for a buyer of money, for which is the option that works best for them. And obviously I think that wealth is going to be the way forward, but we're looking at a marketplace which is particularly difficult at the moment. So now I see the email and I see the kind of meeting that we've got set up with Amico, right? Is it
right, this Friday. Oh yeah, and by the way, I got the date wrong. I mean the time. It's not the I thought it was like maybe 9 in your time zone, but right now it appears it's 1 hour earlier, so that could be 7 a.m. I don't know if you get the calendar invite.
You just said 9. I thought you was going to say 1 hour earlier. Is 8, not 7. That's 2 hours.
8. Yeah, 2 hours. Oh, sorry. I mean, our usual time is at 8 a.m. your time, right? Like this one, right?
All right. Okay. So you're saying it's 7 o'clock on Friday.
Yes. 7 a.m. for you. So just take note of that. Just take note of that. Sorry about that. Yeah. So,
is it? Well, okay. So look, while we're talking
it should be on your calendar. It should be on your calendar. Yeah. All right. So
No, it's not in my calendar at all, actually. Interesting.
Not
Friday the
yet?
13th.
Okay. Right. Okay. All right. I think the invitation was sent by the assistant of that of Amigo brand. Okay.
Okay.
So yeah,
Yeah, but normally it kind of pops up as a it has two different types. Anyway.
Okay. All right. Anyway, the time is there. All right. So okay. So I guess the thing you'd like to discuss in terms of the review, and anything else you'd like to?
No, I think we're kind of there really. So I think for now, I know we kind of discussed that having the money gifted to, well, not gifted, but the money invested by IncomeSec is at the moment it's from that offer was from Mike Hainsworth to Shun Yun as business partners, and for the purpose of doing it from an accounting point of view, it was okay. Well, let's do it via the companies. And all I was saying is that, look, I don't mind investing in the company because I wanted to put some skin in the game. But I think, I don't know whether or not the discussion should be, well, if IncomeSec has got an invoice, then IncomeSec needs to illustrate that it's got something for a return of that.
Right.
Or do we sit there and say, well, actually, look, assuming then that let's say we generate, let's say that the JCF main generates 20% return on investment, and it generates, for argument's sake, $6,000 within the next 3 months. Does it want to sit there and send those $6,000 back to IncomeSec, and then that's a short-term loan? And then that illustrates that actually we borrow from our investors and we pay back our investors. Or do we want to sit there and say, you know what, here's an itinerary of all the things that we spend money on, there it is, boom, and these are the achievements that we've made, boom. Obviously, if IncomeSec is paying money towards getting things done within JCF main, the purpose for me doing that was to have skin in the game, that because if you're offering me the co-foundership, then it's only right and fair that there's something paid off there. But of course, this isn't benefiting JCF Limited. It's only benefiting JCF Main, which has you as the 95% holder and da-di-da-di-da-di-da, but fundamentally there's nothing coming back in return in that respect. So I just want to voice that as not a concern, but as a subject. We don't have to deal with that now. We can just park that, and it just be, I've said it, I'm happy to come back to that later.
Okay.
Once we thought about it subconsciously.
Okay. All right. Okay. I'll share some feedback on this. Would it be all right? I can share some thoughts now. Yeah. I think the idea I was thinking was that since it's the money paid from JCF Limited. Well, actually, the idea is to actually get JCF Limited to be able to be ICO ready. Okay, so that you can, basically wealth ICO fundraising supposedly is being done through JCF UK. Okay, yeah, I mean that's the right. So
and that's a good point actually, because we might need to talk about that, but we'll park that again for another. But carry on.
Okay. So from my perspective, it's really what right now you've been paying, or what you're buying, is essentially the capability for JCF UK to be able to host ICO. Okay, sort of buying the capability for doing that.
Right.
And so that all the ICO fundraising results actually will become, managed under JCF Limited, the UK company, JCF UK. Okay, I think that's the idea. And so what this means is that what really should happen, because right now it's because of the accounting, right? It's paid by through income tax. But I think what really should happen is that you are contracting JCF Taiwan for a service to provide with you with a blockchain system that can do ICO fundraising. Okay, and that service itself, whatever amount that's being raised belongs to the the service owner, and whether you're just getting a service of the ability to host ICO, or better yet, even also the system, meaning the source code. Okay, that's that's the discussion, right?
The source code
And
that's open, right?
yeah, but if your source code and it's closed, that would be way too cheap, right? There's or that would be some kind of license, which is also doable, right? Kind of like a licensing, right? Where we're giving you a license to permission to run, right? To get whatever results with the system. That's also doable. So in other words, you're also paying for a license to that, right? And
But that interesting then,
yeah.
though, that you're saying it as if it's Mike Ainsworth or IncomeSec a separate entity, whereas this actually is a joint venture in the sense that JCF Limited is Shunyun and Mike.
Right. So what happens is,
so if
right now
if JCF Main gives the source code to JCF Limited, because that's what it's paid for, it's not just benefiting Mike Ainsworth, who's invested $6,000. It's giving Shunyun and Mike the ability to launch JCF wealth within that. So I mean, I would then argue that the source code is not cheap. It's an investment that benefits us both for the long term, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Just from a positioning point of view, that's how I would understand it. But I'm not trying to argue a point here, and I'm really not trying to be grab.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I think that's how I am seeing, at least right now, the fact that money comes from IncomeSec. I do feel that it's probably something, that would be IncomeSec owns the right to that service or get that service. So that somehow has to be transferred to JCF UK. Okay, this is from my perspective.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't know how that's.
I think the simplest way of doing that then is if this theoretic. Okay, if I borrow some money from my company, right, I can do that, or I can lend money to anybody I want, right? But I need to have a letter stipulating what the interest rate is and when the return on capital will be. So, and so long as I'm not kind of gifting it away, then there's and by gifting, so for instance, the base rate of the Bank of England is 2.25% today, right? So if I'm getting back my money, my capital plus 2.25%, then as far as the government is concerned, I've made a legitimate investment and I've got a return on my investment. So from a financial accounting point of view, if IncomeSec were I think the easiest and cheapest way is if IncomeSec were to retain or regain the $6,000 plus some notional form of interest based upon whatever the base rate is of the day it returns, right? That way it legitimizes the money. And also it legitimizes the fact that then that technology, that source code, is owned by JCF Limited to do with as it pleases, and it cuts its ties with IncomeSec Limited. That could be a way of working through that. It's just a suggestion, and I don't,
Okay, that sounds fine. That sounds fine. What I do see a problem though is, well, in that case, do you mean that JCF UK is borrowing money from IncomeSec in that sense?
At the moment, no, because the way we've worked it is we're doing a trade, right? So at the moment, IncomeSec is paying. Now, I don't know how the accountants will balance this. Should we change it all around and say, well, actually, it's a loan, right?
Okay.
They
Okay.
might
Mhm,
they might say you can't do that because you've already put it through the books as being a purchase. In
okay.
which case, we'll have to figure out an alternative way of doing it, right?
Mhm.
But ultimately, you and I can decide to do what the hell we like, so long as we're legally complying with whatever the regulations
Right.
are.
Right. I see.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So I don't
What?
mind changing the value, changing it
Okay.
if we need to later on. I
Okay.
think we chose
Okay.
to do it this way because it allowed us to do something immediately. But
Right. Right.
you know,
Okay.
which brings up another. So it brings up another 2 points, right? One, JCF limited bank account,
Right.
and then two, the other point I wanted to talk about was company registration. In which country
Okay.
do we want to be registered? So,
Okay.
but again, those are two points I think we need to just, we can come back to.
Okay. Okay. All right. I do think that probably resolve this, have an agreement quickly, because this is kind of, I think if it's probably good to get this resolved now than later, because later it will probably only involve more money and more, I guess, transaction. Okay. So
Well, here's
the,
here's the thing and that's a
right.
good point. And the reason why I'm talking about it now is that, like, look, there's a cap on this, right? I kind of sat there and earmarked $6,000. It's not a bottomless pit; it's $6,000.
Okay.
So it's kind of that's where we're at. So as far as I'm concerned, there's a limitation there.
Oh, okay.
And
Okay.
and so it's not that I'm going to be funding $2,000 a month for in perpetuity
Right. Right.
for
Right.
for the next year or something.
Right.
That's just not going to happen.
Right.
Which is a forcing function for us to
Right. Right. To
sit there and
produce
get things.
results, essentially.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. Right. Which is good.
Now,
Which is good.
if you're worried about when you say including means more money, if you're thinking of that from the point of view of every month is another 2,000, well, I've just answered that question.
Oh, okay.
If you're
Okay.
thinking
All
about how it's going to value up, like what does that 6,000 look like tomorrow or in a year's time? How's that going to? I mean, I'm not going to shoot myself in the foot for $6,000, right? It's
Okay.
the agreement there is we'll come to
Okay.
something reasonable based upon
Okay.
what's fair, right?
Okay.
And so that's that.
All right. Okay. So, all right. So you like to park this for now? Is that the idea?
I felt that I needed to say it. I think
Okay.
that
Okay.
it's
All
one of
right.
those subjects where if we now that it's on the table, let it sit on the table, and then we'll come back to it when we thought when
Okay.
subconsciously
Okay.
the mind has adjusted for it.
Okay.
I'm happy working like that. That whole open source dialogue, I was about letting it just sit there and think about it at the back of my head. Right, that's how I operate.
Okay. Good.
So
Good.
again,
Just a quick question. Do we have agreement that the ownership of whatever it's been paid so far should belong to JCF UK Limited? And so that it can legitimately perform ICOs, right? And then own the assets or whatever that comes through the ICO. I mean, is that
I
a
think that was the
consensus
original
now?
agreement, right? That was the
Okay.
original
Yeah.
agreement.
All
Yeah.
right. Okay. All right. So that, right. Okay. Yeah. So I think as long
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
we are going that route, that I think that's fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I look. I mean, forgive me if I'm asking. I say that I think that was the original agreement. So forgive me if I'm re-asking questions which don't need to be asked based upon that. But I just,
okay. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So I guess the just one quick feedback about what the money currently is being used for. It's 2,000 translates to about 60,000, 60K NT dollars. Okay, that's just how the ratio. And right now, 40,000 of that is basically salary paid to me and then to the developers. Okay, so that's development cost. And 10,000 is to repay the debt. I think I mentioned to you that we owe some developer that was working on
Oh,
the
yeah.
wealth system, right? And then 10,000 is for admin and admin stuff. So that's basically to keep the company basically running. That's how
Right.
it's currently being budgeted. I think for both of these, these two payments. And right now the first 40,000, 40K has been spent. Okay, that's on the wealth, but pending the completeness of the system. Okay, it's waiting to be verified. And then the second of the 40,000, right now I think half of that, that equals to about 600 US dollar. Okay, so that's about I think about 700 US dollar. Right now 600 is supposed to be admits for strategy. So my thinking right now is that's the budget allocated for making sure the strategy does happen. Right now it's just using half of that to sort of test runs, to make sure the strategy can actually come up. Okay, so the other half right now, I think it's kind of being reserved because we want to see how this is actually works with, working with admin in terms of getting it done. So that's and right now it's not being paid. It's still being withheld. The agreement was it's again result based. Once that's done, then we'll pay. So I don't know if
Okay,
that
cool.
clarifies what you'd like to know. That's the
Yeah, no, that's
the
fine.
current
I
tool
think,
installation. Yeah.
yeah, I just need to know that I need to be able to argue with the accountant if I ever need to justify why it was spent, because I don't want it to be. Because I can't have the HMRC sit there and say something like, well, who's this company outside in Taiwan? Are you sure it's not money that's going into your pocket? And you've just found a way of, loopholing your tax responsibilities and all that kind of stuff. So it's got to be, it's got to be a kind of a foolproof kind of documented kind of way forward. And that, I just need to be able to show that. So.
Okay. All right.
And of course, it's due diligence as well. I would be reckless if I just handed money out and just didn't ask for the justification for it.
True. Yes. Yeah. So yeah. I hope that answers the question. But I mean, it's I mean that the I guess the accounting, the books are there. Feel free to also check anytime. Okay. So all right. So let's move to, I guess, the 2023 3 hacks. Would that be all right? Okay.
Yeah.
So let me share my screen here.
Do you have to buy another cup of coffee, Shinjin? You've been there an hour.
No. We're fine. Is that the case in UK?
No, I brought my flask of coffee with me today, so I've had that.
Okay. All right. So this is just to recheck. Okay, the B hack, I think it still stays the same, right?
Yeah.
And we did have some candidates in terms of the purpose and values. And I guess I'm just trying to highlight what's the we did list some. I guess I'd like to ask, is there any feedback on changing or adjust this? And I think we settle on the growing wealth for all as sort of the purpose statement. And for values, this is actually the current ones, I think. I mean, but any thoughts as to what do you think should stand out?
Well, it does. We've got safety, accessibility, and social impact being three
right. The core
things that we talk about.
Yes.
So I wonder whether or not we should also include those as part of our core values.
Okay.
Because then there's a congruence, a flow of that from both internally and then externally.
Accessibility is actually here.
Yeah.
So actually, I think the other idea is, should we make that as the core value, right? If we have been saying that these are the important aspects. So for example, let me just highlight and see if that looks right. Safety, accessibility, and impact. And I guess the idea is that is this something that would really resonate? You know, the story I like that kind of reminds me is on essentialism, when he talks about, I think one of the major drug companies that use Tylenol. I don't know if you know that story. Basically,
Remind me.
it was tampered with, and actually 7 people died from that. And the company that produced Tylenol was, in the process of deciding what should they do, whether they should, to recall the products, whether they should just try to do, PRs, things like that. But in the end, what happened was because they actually had their core values actually carved in stone, set by their founders, and it stayed customer first, employees or like companies, shareholder last. Okay, so they actually decided rather swiftly recall, all the Tylenols, the drugs out there, potentially losing millions of dollars in the process. Okay, but that was like their value. So it made deciding things easy, particularly in times of situations, challenge, or when you're being tested. So I guess the question is that the three thing that we feel that it's the most important?
Well, of course, the I said it from the point of view of it's what we it's what we broadcast to other people. So I don't see a problem with it being, if there's congruence and if it's internal and external. The other thing is it means safety means different things in terms of the context that it's in, right? So
right, correct, yes.
Safety as in being safe to that means that we hold a responsibility to act to ensure safety of the money that we've been entrusted to us.
Okay.
And also in the free house, it doesn't start and end with just a couple of words. I'll still carry it in my bag.
Okay, great. Right.
It gives. It's right at the very beginning, isn't it?
I think safety is a way to generate trustworthiness, right? I think that's
So those are the three hags. Those are the three core principles that particular company had. So it had happy, and then it had a sentence defining what that meant. Right.
Okay.
So I think okay. So what did they say there? Happy to come to work, happy to go home. Right. Well, safety might, safety might be, I don't know, safety within the workplace, safety within of the funds that we hold, safety for the investments we make, or something like that. I don't know. You see what I mean? It would then have a kind of connotation within that.
How about this? We can all sleep well at night. How about that?
Yeah.
Okay. So because that's concrete, right?
Yeah.
Like I know a lot of like people who are doing tradings or quote unquote investments, and they may not sleep well, particularly if like there's major market conditions or there's a incorrect decision being made, or like a trading move. However, potentially this is what we want. We want to be able to rest well at night. Like we don't want to like worry about the fund's performance, the market's performance, or whether the assets will be stolen, or some people somewhere made a mistake and
well, that's the that's the thing. I don't want to end up being taken in handcuffs by a bunch of FBI guys because somebody's been unethical within the organization and we haven't spotted it, right? Because ultimately
Exactly.
we're responsible, and I don't want to spend the rest of my life working bloody hard to do something honest and then get screwed over by somebody else. So that's really important to me, that we have the right checks and balances.
Yeah. So same for me. Same for me. I don't want to
and people stealing our, people, that's why the security element is really important to us as well, because we don't want to lose face by being hacked and then losing, billions of dollars or whatever it is. So.
Okay. All right. So yeah, we can obviously adjust, but okay. So right now I'm putting the sentence, safety of assets, we can all sleep over that. Okay. So what about accessibility? What kind of comes to mind here?
Well, I think, your original statement is that anybody can access it. And I think that level of transparency. So, so actually, the transparency element that you have below, the trust element, I think, there's a quote in the Baha'i faith: truthfulness is the foundation of all human virtues. And I kind of like that, because it means that actually, what is it Ben keeps saying? All progress starts with the truth, right? So truthfulness is the foundation of all human virtues. It's kind of, it's that's what it's saying, really. So I'm just plugging my laptop in. But accessibility, it's having that transparency, having that ability to see what's going on, and also it's not just about. So in that context, it's not just about being able to access the crypto market and the funds, but it's also being able to see what's going on once you've gotten that access.
I'm thinking about transparency of the operations.
Yeah.
Transparency. Okay. So, all right. So anybody can access, and also transparency or operational transparency. How about that?
Yeah, operational transparency is better.
Okay. So that's also part of. Okay. Accessibility part. Okay. Operational transparency. All right. So impact. What about impact?
Well, I suppose we want our 1 billion to have their basic income, but also what impact we want internally for those that work with us. How
I think when we talk about impact, it's really about not just any impact, but it's about positively. All right, is it too early? Okay, all right.
I'm sorry.
Okay, yeah, it's fine. We'll probably get to this quick. I mean, curious. Is it about positive impact that that people that we're making towards I guess people's life, people around us, having a positive influence of people around us as a result of the work? Is that what you're?
Yeah, I think so. I think, look, if our goal is for 1 billion people to have a basic income, that's far away. Not in terms of, that's for people external to us, right? But what's what about the people next to us? What about Nick? What about Joy? What about Sincere? What about Sunny? What about Poet? What about, see what I mean? They're all people who are kind of becoming part of, to be included within the realm.
JCF network, right? And in fact, the JCF community kind of starts from here, right?
Yeah, exactly. So are we giving them? And likewise, so if I'm just an outside investor and I invest my 10,000, and there you go, what impact is it having on me? Well, it's yeah, the wealth that we generate for you, that's part of the impact, but also the fact that you now know that that you've donated it to your son, or you've donated it to your charity, or whatever.
So I think that's a great point. Actually, what your comment just reminds me is that the impact we are looking for could be close at home. It's not necessarily helping, obviously, at some stage when it becomes really big, when it becomes a big fund, you will be able to help, people far away, or like really unrelated, and that's the part of technology and whatnot. However, the impact we're looking at, it's really helping those that you can see, right? Your neighbors, your relatives, your church, your I guess your kids' school, for example, right? And you are able to donate to them, for them to also to have some kind of I guess stability, or resources to push forward their causes. And that's the kind of the impact or the change we like to see, basically, from those around us can start to benefit. And then it becomes sort of like a rippling effect towards more and more people. And maybe that's how JCF will grow, right? Through word of mouth, through social networks, through referrals, right? And in fact, that's what we want to launch, right? Sort of the referral mechanism. That was part of the original JCF design.
Here's the thing. So you just reminded me of a conversation that I've had with somebody. His wife is part of the Parent Teachers Association for their school where their kids are, and what they do, she just is really good at organising discounts. So she'll go, well, look, I've got 500 parents who are willing to buy, who all want to buy, I don't know, toys for Christmas. So the toy company will sit there and go, well, I'll give you a 50% discount. So straight away they know that they're gonna, if they do this kind of, she's almost leveraging the school in terms of its benefit. And he sat there and he said, oh, is it something that we could possibly do with the school? And I said, yes. So that whole thing about being able to prove, right, if we've got a solid case of every month we generate this amount of profit, we can then take it to those sorts of organizations, even at the very grassroots level, and start building case studies on that respect. Sorry, that was just an aside, really. But yes, I agree with what you just written there.
Okay. All right. So yeah, I think that's obviously this is always work in progress, but I think having that kind of concreteness, yeah, I think that's what we want. So we can understand, other people can also understand what we're talking about. Okay. All right. So I was thinking about putting like grandmother access, or but anyway.
Yeah, wheelchairs. Zimmer frames.
Yeah. Or the other way put accessibility I was thinking about was like from homeless to billionaires, right? That's another or would you like to put that down? I think maybe that's
well, anybody can access. Yeah, I mean, by all means, put it in there. I think you need me after the.
Okay, yeah. Let's just throw that in. Okay, yeah. This is all right. Good to leave it there. I mean, just like
fine.
Okay. All right. So I guess this is the let's review the first 3 hacks. So right now, I think we should put the date down here because you know, like the three hands,
Yeah.
it's moved. So that would actually become 2026 now, right? Okay. So, all right. So the main fund, yeah, the idea was have 10,000 people and 150 million assets under management.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And the wealth fund, 1,000 like wealthy individuals, potentially raising 1.5 billion. So
Mm-hmm.
basically, essentially, I think that's 1.5 million on average. By each individual potentially represents one fundraising project. Okay, so that's like
Yeah.
for the wealth. Yeah. So change or still, that's fine.
No, I think
Or
we're agreed on those goals there. I don't think there's anything. We did what?
or this has become one.
This has become what? Sorry.
1 million.
Sorry, Shunyan, my internet is cutting me out. I missed that.
Like become 1 million.
Wow, that was.
No, that's a million MAU. I think it's still breaking. Oh, I think the
Yeah,
internet
no,
is
you're back now. You're
okay.
back now. Yeah, my
Okay,
fault.
okay.
My
All right,
internet's
all right.
rubbish.
Okay.
So what was that? You want to change that from 10,000 to 1 million?
I mean, that's the question. Is that the idea?
Is that what we agreed?
Well, this is highly achievable goals. So it has to be something that I think both of us feel that it's achievable, right?
Yeah.
And
So that's what? That's 2 years away to go from 50 to 1 million.
no, 3 years. That's still 3 years. Yeah.
Well, it's 2023 now, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
so
sorry.
okay.
Yeah. No,
So you're
3
saying
years.
12.
3 years.
Well, I suppose technically 31st of December 25 is 3 years. For one,
Okay.
because we're at beginning of January 23. So,
Right.
but nevertheless, you want to go. You want to go from zero, effectively 0 to 1 million in 3 years, which means increasing by 300,000 a year on average. 333,333. Well, I think, yeah.
This is the fun thing about going 10x. You know, I think the question is, yeah, like what's. I mean, I actually been thinking about whether we want to set like set a quote unquote reasonably achievable goal, on paper, but then try to
Yeah.
internally to like say, let's do this year now, try to think 10x. Okay. but but the other is to have it written down, the numbers actually written down, and like that's like shared across everywhere, because like going 10x is definitely a very, I guess it's a personal decision and choice as well. But
Yeah.
I mean, at the organizational level, is that something we want to state at the organization level, and is that going to bring everybody on board, right?
Yeah, I think
So
so you're saying that
oh, okay,
so
let me
that's
repeat
actually
that.
so
Let me repeat again.
10,000
Yeah.
10,000
Oh.
people
Mhm.
at $15,000 each.
Right,
Gets us
right,
150 million.
Right. That's right. Yes.
Okay.
So let me put it another way. Okay, I think it's it we already know if we assume we can 10x every 3 years, then even if we just get to this number by in 3 years, that's perfectly fine. Okay, because it's 3 years every 10x. However, we could try to aim to achieve this much sooner, or let's say by the end of this year, you know, like maybe internally, but having a stated goal of like this is what we want to achieve 3 years, which can be a more public communication. I guess the question is, should we like just do this a single version, right? And set really ambitious goal, or does the ambition actually just exist like in the
No,
co-founders,
I think
right?
yeah. Look, if
Mhm.
you sit there and say let's go, I get the argument about forcing functions and
Mhm. Right.
putting it down on paper,
Mhm. Right.
and then that allows us to focus on making the numbers work, and thinking about strategies. It removes all of the noise that we just hone in on the one thing. You and I might agree that we'll always come back and review whether or not these goals are 10x or not. Right now, you've got 50 users. So right now, you've gone
No,
20x.
right now it's about 50,000 K, 100 plus users. Right now it's 100 plus users.
Oh, really? Sorry. Oh, it's
Right.
50K
Yeah.
with 100 users.
Right. 50K.
Right. Beg
Right.
your pardon.
Right.
Beg your
100,
pardon.
100
Okay.
plus. Yes. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Okay. So, okay, then in that case, right. So, okay. So 100 users, then yeah, you're 10xing it. So that's, yes, 100 times. Yeah. No, that's, so if you got 100 and you times it by 10, that's 1,000, right? Yeah.
So yeah, it's about 1,000. Yes. It's not as scary, I guess. It's
So 10xing 100 is only going to take us to 1,000. You've got 100x with 10,000.
right. Mm-hmm.
So straight away, you're well above the 10x figure anyway. Now, one might argue that because we're starting, we're going to expect to see exponential growth, right? So we expect to see that. So 10,000 isn't ambitious for what we want to achieve. It's not. I think if you look at the sheer maths of it, it is an ambitious target, but I don't think it's unreasonable. I think what we should be doing this time next year is going, well, all right, how close are we to the 10x? What's our, are we going to make that 10,000 by 25? Or by the end of the year, will we be going, that's fantastic, we've done our 10,000, now how are we going to change it? And I think we should evaluate. I think that number should stay stood for now. And I think we should review how successful we have been in the next 12 months.
Okay.
Personally.
Okay. All right. Okay. Good. So let's make that okay. So maybe I take this as we set that as the current goals, the achievable goals, but we will try to 10x in terms of making it happen sooner, right? If it happens sooner and you actually realize, we will readjust the numbers accordingly, essentially.
I take
right.
Yeah, when I would like to readjust this is when we've got our working model tied down. Because if we're doing 20-30% per month return on investment, or growth of capital, I should say, and we've got our whole position from starting the investment through to who we donate the dividend, the donation tokens to, who are the recipients of the donation tokens. Once we've got all of that sorted, then I think we should sit there and go, right, are we ambitious enough? Is this, because for me, if we achieve those, getting that kind of model working, right?
You will adjust, right? Right. Okay. I
Yeah,
see.
and I think that gives us the product, right? Then we can start doing the mind share. Does that make sense?
Okay, sure. All right. So just a quick check. Is this this is the current stated 2023, goals, basically 5x the numbers and 2.5 million assets under management. There hasn't been numbers for wealth yet. Okay, this is the wealth system. This is the main, this is the wealth. And I guess those, yeah. So any numbers you think we should put for
Open
this
Wealth
year?
Barter Exchange launched. When did that sneak in?
A few, couple
Yeah,
of weeks ago.
this is yeah. I bet it did. Hey, another one of your let's ask
Okay.
forgiveness.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not
Yeah.
the Catholic Church, Shunyan. You're not just going to get the forgiveness just because you come and confess, right? And that ain't how it works with me.
Okay. Yeah. So, but anyway, this is end of the year goal, kind of, to get the exchange going. So wealth is lunch, right? With
I think the end of the year goal should be that wealth is launched. We sat there and said, well, you asked me at the very beginning of the year what I wanted, and I said 3 ICOs, successful ICOs.
Right. Okay.
I think if we can see that, then I think we're on form.
Okay.
I think okay. But rather than delete it, I mean,
okay.
to have it
Add to that,
as a
3
goal.
ICOs. Okay, 3 ICOs.
Yeah.
3 ICOs.
That's with wealth alone.
Okay. All right. And what's the assets size though?
I think we said 150 million for those 3 ICOs, which gave us 50 each.
Okay. All right. On average. All right. So yeah, so I just put the numbers there. Okay. So right now it's 500. This is the main fund, by the way, and this is the wealth. Okay, the wealth platform. So they are.
Right.
I keep separate numbers because they are, kind of different audience. So that would be basically the goals this year. Then.
Which means then, right, that so for us to make this happen, right, then we've got to start spending time on getting the space mercenaries happening, because that's the easiest one to convert straight away. Although we could at some point, maybe at the same token, given what your colleague, your ex school friend said about being in property and how property would be a good one. It's interesting. It's about mindset really on that one. I think it's certainly there's a dialogue to be had, because it's certainly an easier marketplace in some respects, but it's not necessarily as fruitful in others. One of the problems that the UK is going to face, or is facing now, and will face increasingly, is profitability of property and affordability of property. So, from the point of view of an investor, so if you can deliver a funding mechanism that gives a cheaper than the normal rate, then there'll be a lot of people buying into that. There'll be massive demand for money, and I think there'll be massive demand for tokens as well. But hey ho, that's another thing. Okay.
Do I take that as you are take on to figure out how to make a property fund work in the UK market as part of the ICO? Okay.
I'd give it, that would have to be it, really. But if I do that, then if I do that, it's going to be my product. So, but look, Shunyan, on that, realistically, it might be worth us having a conversation, because in the UK, there are some. I've written a white paper and I've sent you it, so have a read and see what you think.
I read it already. I mean
Oh, okay,
the
fine.
property. Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
okay. Well, we need to have a conversation about that then, about how to work it, because I think for it to work within the construct of wealth and main, I think we need to think about the you know, how it's, and also what's happening within the marketplace here and how people make money here. We have to blend together some different ideas.
Okay, okay, all right.
But
So I would suggest how we do this is create impact filter again. Okay, see if you can just summarize some of the key results you like to see from the impact filter. I think the house we can, you know, we can brainstorm to figure out, or maybe, you know, enlist some other experts to join in, right? But I think we can definitely start from an impact filter discussion. And depending on the timing of this, because right now I think the strategy is kind of already that's mainly about Nick and Amit, right? Try to get them to work. So I do feel that we have some time and space. We can discuss about this. Okay. And I think one key maybe I am fully expecting, you know, launching wealth in February. Okay. Basically building the wealth platform. This is what I'm thinking, because if we want to have Q1 and there's Chinese New Year in February, like right after the strategy, I think getting the wealth platform to sort of be able to launch other ICOs, I would suggest that as the, you know, as the third installation, the third payment that you are purchasing, right? Basically ability to launch another ICO, and not just, you know, it will have to be a system. It cannot, you know, like be like manual adjustments, or it has to become like a SOP system where you can push buttons and start to launch funds. Okay, that's what I sort of expect. Okay, so I don't know if you agree with that. Then that's
Makes
actually we
sense.
can start, right? That's something, once the current wealth ICO has been verified, you know, the features, functions are ready. I think the development team, which is Josh and Sunny here, I think they can move forward with making that an SOP process. What do you think?
Yeah. Okay, fine. I
Okay.
I think so, because then that ties in with us getting the Q1 launch of our next ICO, which is
Exactly. Okay. All right. So I think I will talk with them technically in terms of maybe set that as a February goal, right? I mean, for this month, we want to make sure everything works. But if they confirms early, we can just kick off that as well, right? So okay, great. All right. So
okay.
yeah. So anything else you'd like to confirm, check, or I think quite a bit of progress actually for today, especially with the
I think so
annual
too.
goal. Yeah.
I think so too. By the way, look, I alluded to this earlier, but JCF Limited, I think what's going to happen in the UK now is that companies are going to be starting to be taxed a lot more rigorously. So I think it's something like from the first, I think it's from 0 to I don't know, 250,000 is going to be 19%. And then from 250,000 to 1 million is going to be 20%, 22%. And then from 1 million plus, it's going to be like 25% or something like that, right? My accountant was telling me the other day. Also, entrepreneurial relief is when you're when you sell a company, you only pay 10% tax up to a certain amount. Now they're going to make it up to 1 million, which isn't a lot for a company actually that's worth selling. So after that, you have to pay something like 40%. Now, that only matters when you sell the company. But of course, that whereas from a crypto point of view, Dubai, Cayman Islands, Switzerland, those are 3 places where structuring companies. So I think we realistically have to think, okay, at what point does the work transition from JCF UK, JCF Limited into, now Taiwan, different thing completely. And given that, from the point of view of Mike Hainsworth and JCF Limited, right, that's one person and one decision maker. You're the partner, right? And then all of the team are effectively in Taiwan, or the majority of the team is in Taiwan. So that means then that the entity is sitting in Taiwan. So it's not so HMRC can't go after anything that happens in Taiwan because it's none of their business, and because the majority of the work goes on over there, it's none of their business. And at the moment, JCF Limited is effectively a dormant account because it hasn't done any trading yet.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So I think what I'm trying to say is that whilst I don't think there's any harm. I think it's good to continue with the limited, but I think we should do it with our eyes open on how far we want to take that, because at some point we will want to transition to a more crypto friendly and tax friendly country, which will be one of those three that we've mentioned at least. Because it just will.
Okay, I see. My friend just actually showed me that they're designing basically a crypto company, let's say Singapore, and and a more regular company in Taiwan, which they plan to do IPO. Okay, and he also, the crypto company is a holding company of the IPO company, because if you actually do an IPO, you cannot actually. It will be a lot harder for a crypto company to go IPO, at least here in Taiwan. So that was their logic. I was just, having lunch with Musk. I mean, the founder of EasyDex. I mean, he was introducing a friend to me earlier. So I think similar logic probably is there. All right. So I think.
And it's, here's the thing. It's not that I want to not pay any tax. I'm quite happy paying tax. I don't mean it from that point of view. It's just about being as efficient as possible. And if we're,
right.
The sorts of numbers that we're talking about, we're going to scale pretty quickly.
And
I think we just need to be prepared to make the best out of the wealth that we generate, because ultimately, if we're generating a fund so that we can fund a billion people with basic income, well, there's no good if we're losing 40% tax to a government. Right.
Right. That's right.
That to me doesn't make any sense. We're actually we're a profit-making organization that is doing charitable work, essentially, or has a charitable element to it.
Right. I fully see your point. You were talking about that's the company income tax rate, right? That's
corporation tax. Yeah.
Corporation tax. Okay. For the profit though, right? I mean, that's the profit, or just the income.
Yeah, for
revenue.
Sure. I mean, but I mean, if we gift part of our profit away, then we're still going to get taxed on that, even though we're gifting it away, I would imagine.
I see.
But I don't know. Maybe not because it's a gift. But
all right. I think it's great time for finding who's to join the conversation on this. Okay. All right. So I'm no tax expert, but yeah, I do know that we probably want to find someone.
But in truth, Hakeem was actually talking about this right at the very beginning. So
okay, all right.
But anyway,
all right. So yeah, so Mike, thanks. I think I
time to go.
Actually have right time to go. Yeah, but really appreciate it. It's been a great. So I list down 3 to-dos, which is one, just to wrap up, basically to do the the UK limited ownership thing, basically set wealth launch as a February goal, and also UK estate fund, that's on your part. Okay, to see if that's something that makes sense to.
Yeah, I'm writing the impact filter for that.
Right. To move forward, at least in the thinking, conceptualizing stage, because it's probably going to take some time to get the concepts fully fleshed out. And once the system is ready, if there's a market, we could even make it a go, right?
Yeah.
That's Okay. Yeah. All right. So really appreciate it. And
Thank you, my
I think
friend.
we'll talk tomorrow, same time, on the immunology thing.
Immunology, income sec. Yay! All right, Ben.
All right.
See you tomorrow.
Have a great day. Have a great day.
And you bye.
Take care. Bye bye.